All right, hi guys. So today we're working on the last part of our packet. So I think some of this was pretty self-explanatory. Some of it we already did a couple weeks ago. Our living dinosaurs. Of course, you're just going to Cornell's website, and you're working on all that with your fun colored pencils, getting to do some coloring while we're stuck in the house. And then the part that I'm going to help you with and kind of walk through with you today is the Comparative Dinosaur Anatomy section towards the end. So we have a lot of different pieces of dinosaurs here. These are all casts. You guys got to handle some real dinosaur bones already with our Hell Creek Formation, Montana activity a few weeks ago, so I'm really glad we got to do that. These are casts of real material, so they are very good, but you're not really missing out on not getting to handle them, I guess. So I want to start out with letter A, just kind of show you what we're looking at, and there's some still images too, so you can dig in a little bit deeper, but I'm going to, of each of the specimens, but I'm going to just kind of go over them with you a bit. So we're starting out with the Theropod table, and this is the biggest table that we have. Letter A is looking at this part, so write down what part of the animal it is, probably not very difficult, and this is the kind of skull that we're comparing it to, but I also have a nicer, bigger one here, and this is the animal that we're looking at, so you probably have a pretty good guess, very large theropod. So think about what that tells you about what the animal ate. So a lot of these pieces we're looking at diet, a little bit of locomotion, maybe protection, defense, things like that. So basically just looking at these sometimes very unusual body parts and using them to tell something about the animal's lives. So B, then we are looking at a part that it belongs to the same animal as part A, so we're still talking about this dinosaur here. And this is a cool part that when it was discovered really painted a very nice picture of what this group of dinosaurs, the theropods, are related to. So write down what you think it is. There's only one of them in a dinosaur's body, so it's not a rib or a claw or anything like that. It's symmetrical. It would just be like this on the dinosaur. So it looks a little bit different than what you might see on a bird, but it does, you have seen these before on birds. I can almost promise you. Letter C is looking at obviously a foot of an animal, and this is a little guy. This is a Velociraptor. So if you've seen Jurassic Park, of course, you have an idea of that big kind of toe there. And we also have some other feet to kind of get an idea as we think about like our bird, non-avian dinosaur connection here. I have a foot of a turkey, so you could really get a sense of what a turkey's foot looks like, and a foot of a willow ptarmigan from Norway. Very well adapted then to being a cold weather animal with lots of fluff on it, lots of feathers. So one of the things that we're thinking of then is birds' feet are very adaptable. They use them for all sorts of different things. That's kind of what you're writing down here on letter C. And dinosaurs kind of invented that. The theropod dinosaurs had very flexible, as far as evolution goes, very adaptable feet. And we see that in raptors like Velociraptor. Okay, and then we have D, E, and F here. So you have a still image of those to kind of compare. Letter D goes to this animal. This is something, and don't look online and see, what did this animal, catch prey very quickly, or did it just kind of use its big jaw for crushing bone? That's what I'm asking you here, but don't look online or anything. Just kind of think about the anatomy. What would it take to be a bone crusher? So we have, this kind of very lightweight crest on Dilophosaurus. For letter E, this is an animal. I don't have its picture, but this is for a Carnotaurus. So think about that kind of deep, very kind of bulldog shape of skull and what that could be used for. And then something like, this is Oviraptor, this is Citipodi, but one of the Oviraptorids, so what it may have used its jaw for. And notice one cool thing about the Oviraptors, they do not have teeth. So this is a non-avian dinosaur that doesn't have teeth. So even the loss of teeth and the evolutionary plasticity that would lead to dinosaur evolution was evolved in the non-avian dinosaurs. Okay, should I move on to the next one?
Yeah, you can.
All right, so I'm just kind of moving over. So now we're looking at the Thyroid table. That's a weird word. Thyroid means armor bearer. I don't think I have a whole whole lot else to say about that. So G is looking at part of an ankylosaur. So I think that's going to be pretty self-explanatory there. H is looking at a part of a stegosaur. So I think you got that. There are a lot of different pieces of kind of bizarre anatomy that have often, as we move on to the ornithopod table a little bit, that this is not an ornithopod, but a really good example of what I'm mentioning here. A lot of kind of unusual parts of dinosaurs' anatomy have been attributed to protection and defense, and we're finding out that a lot of those are probably not used, at least primarily, for protection and self-defense. The Thyroids, though, are an exception. They're named the armored ones for a reason. All right, back to ornithopods then. So for the ornithopods, we're looking at animals like Parasaurolophus here, the kind of duck-billed, hadrosaurid type of dinosaurs. This is a jaw of, am I asking you what it is? Okay, well, anyway, you got an answer. So this is the lower jaw of one of these, but what you're looking at is a whole bunch of different teeth. You got to handle some of these pieces of the dentary with our Hell Creek Formation activity we did a few weeks ago. They were missing the teeth because they were in a microsite and tossed around with a lot of in a river sediment stuff. But anyway, this is a cast of the real jaw of this is Edmontosaurus. So lots of teeth, and what we're able to see on the still picture, you'll be able to look in a little bit closer, is that we have a lot of teeth that are replacing teeth. So we have this other edge here. I'll turn around, and you can see that it's kind of worn. And of course, this is a cast of a real piece. It's not an artist's rendition or anything. And so this would be where softer tooth material, like the dentine, is actually worn down from grinding, but the hard, tough enamel forms a nice ridge that is a sharp cutting edge. When we think of animals that eat plants, we often think of like kind of soft, round, like kind of our molars, which are not really for eating the kinds of plants that these guys are eating. These guys could have eaten pine cones. We find stuff like that in their stomach contents, pine needles, all sorts of stuff. And they were able to because they evolved one of the most powerful dental batteries ever in the animal kingdom. And one of the things that they're doing is similar to what rodents do today. Like beavers, guinea pigs, the reason why they're eating wood and stuff is partly to keep their teeth sharp. So the dentine, I guess, is worn away, and the enamel sticks up and keeps a nice sharp edge, and those teeth in rodents constantly grow in the incisors. In dinosaurs, they would always replace their teeth, so they would actually lose their teeth and a new one would come in. So we see that with the ornithopods, like Parasaurolophus, and here's a little model of a skull of Parasaurolophus, but a better image here of what the animal looked like. And this guy would, he'd be able to eat a whole lot of things and work on it for a while. So he had the jaws to chew and chew and chew. These are not ornithopods, but something similar, very powerful dental batteries as well, are the ceratopsian dinosaurs and the pachycephalosaurids too. These, and you can kind of see the whole skull here where you're seeing the exposed jaw. And the very powerful teeth as well, rows and rows of teeth that would replace themselves when they'd get worn down. With my little model, and this is a very new model, this is Regalosaurus, a very new, I think so, yeah, Regaloceratops. Okay. This is a pretty newly discovered dinosaur, so a very new model then. And one of the cool things it shows us is an enclosed cheek. We don't know if they probably didn't have the fleshy cheeks that like horses and cows do today, but they were able to chew a whole lot of things. They were able to process a lot of their food up here in their face, which is something that we can do because we're mammals, but we really take for granted. That's very unusual for a reptile. So both the ornithopods and the ceratopsians had the ability to grind and grind and grind and chew all sorts of stuff. But whether they had nice enclosed cheeks like that or not. Okay, and then that brings us to letter J, and I feel like I gave you a bunch of answers for the last part here, getting into the Sauropod table. But we just talked about a very powerful dental battery, which means rows and rows of self-sharpening teeth that will replace themselves if they get worn down. Something very different, and points to a very different form of food processing, is going to be the sauropods. So we have here a tooth of Camarasaurus. This is letter J. And the skull, here's a model of a Camarasaurus, so one of the long-necked sauropod dinosaurs. And then a little model of a skull of, oh, he's missing a bunch of teeth. Yeah, oh, okay, to fix that. A little model of Diplodocus, missing the front teeth for whatever, so just check out the bottom ones. But you can kind of see he doesn't have teeth way up here in the back of his face. He's got these little nipping teeth, and what we think that these animals would have done is just kind of strip the leaves off of branches and probably swallow them whole. The reason why elephants are so large, we think, is partly just to have big guts to process all that food. So that's maybe that's the reason for sauropods getting very large too, is to be able to hold a lot of equipment in there, a lot of bacteria, to be able to process all that plant material that they would swallow whole. So they're not doing any processing up here. It's all happening down here. Very different from the ornithopods and the ceratopsians, probably. But there's also a clue that this is what they're doing, because we find what are called gastroliths, or smooth stones, often in the kind of stomach content area of a lot of sauropod dinosaurs. And think about what other animals have gastroliths. If you had a parakeet growing up, did you have to feed it little bits of sand? There's a reason for that. These gastroliths are just a lot bigger. So what you're doing then is you're kind of thinking, did it eat food? I know, scary picture here, but geese don't really have teeth. They have these ridges on their jaws. But did it just kind of snip its food and swallow it whole, like birds kind of do today? They don't have the ability to chew. Or did it kind of chew and process its food very thoroughly up here in the face, do a lot of work to it before it made it to its digestive system, like modern day horses and cows? So you have these two pictures kind of on your handout. They're not very good, but here's the goose and here's the horse. So you're kind of thinking about their, how they process plant material. They're both vegetarians, right? How do they process those plants? So when we think about diets of animals, it's easy to think, okay, carnivore, herbivore, but obviously with these different kinds of theropod faces, catching small, fast prey versus bone crunching, or ramming into huge animals and tearing off chunks of meat, whatever you think they did, we're looking at very different anatomical features, very different body parts. Same thing with herbivory. Herbivory is very complex. Processing plants is difficult, and animals came up with, just as they do today, dinosaurs came up with very different ways of processing that plant material too. So anyway, so that's the last part of your activity. So hopefully you're in good shape and you can put some really good, thoughtful answers down for those last few pages there. Okay, that's it.